Hi, Timothy Eggert here. Welcome to my late 2022 video on Python programming. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm running a Chromebook, and my development environment, in case you're interested, I have IntelliJ IDE Ultimate running with the Python plugin installed. So it's kind of like PyCharm. You can run programs from the terminal. Before I filmed this, I was doing that. So I can run stuff here. I can go into Vim and run stuff. You can use pretty much any text editor you want, but you do have to have Python installed. For a Chromebook, when you enable Debian Linux, Python is automatically installed, and I believe on a Mac it comes automatically installed as well. If it's not, you can go to a website called python.org, and there are downloads here depending on your operating system. So you can download Python and install it that way as well. Okay. Once you get Python installed, you should be able to run programs like I'm running. Now, I'm running an IDE, so when I create a new file, you're just going to see me type the first part without the .py extension. But you do have to add that if your IDE or text editor does not add that for you. So you do have to add that. Make sure you save it, and then if you want to run it from the terminal, I'll be just running it in here using my IDE for the most part, at least. And if you want to run it from the terminal on a Chromebook, you have to actually type in the command Python 3. Sometimes on other computers, you may just type the command Python. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go. And I'm going to move relatively fast. So if something doesn't make sense, just watch the video again or post a comment below, and hopefully either I'll answer it or someone watching the video can respond and answer it as well. Okay, so let's get to strings and printing. So the typical first program is to print to the screen, hello world. Now, in Python 2, what you could do is something like this, where you didn't need to actually include parentheses. But as you can see here, my IDE, which is like a fancy text editor, it's telling me, hey, you got an error here. So that's not valid in Python 3. In Python 3, which you should be using at this point, we put parentheses, opening and closing parentheses, and then inside we can put a string, which is surrounded by quotes. Okay. And by the way, as I make these files, I do have a GitHub repository. I will link it in the description below. So if you want to check out the code for a particular part of the video, I'm going to be prepending my files with a number structure. So you can just find that in the description below, and then check out the GitHub repository online to see the code there as well. Okay, so let's get back to printing hello world. So we're going to print hello space and then world. And let's put an exclamation point, and I can run this and I get hello world. Okay. I can also do this with single quotes. So depending on the developers you're working with, you may have some that preferred single quotes. I would use the style that they're using. But if I print this out, you'll notice I get the same exact thing. Okay. Last part is what I want you to do is try and print out, hi, my name is, whatever your name is. Okay, so you want to stop the video now and do that exercise if you've never done Python before. This is basic, just you don't have to do it. But you do want to be going along and practicing with me as you go, and that'll help you learn the language better. Just watching the videos without practice isn't going to help you a ton. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I would do it. So I would print and then I like double quotes. So let's say hello, comma, my name is Tim. I'm going to run that, and you'll see here we get hello world, and then hello, my name is Tim. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about strings. One thing that you do want to know in Python and other programming languages is how to comment your code. I'm going to show you two methods how to do that here. So let's create another Python file. Remember, if you're not using an IDE, you're going to want to name this with the .py extension. I'm going to do 002 underscore, and let's call this comments. Okay. All right. So one way to create a comment is to use a hashtag like this. And we can now create a one-line comment, okay? Now, my IDE is also saving this automatically. So if I go to run this, you'll see the process finished with exit code 0. That means there were no errors in the program, but there is no output, right? Because this line here is just being ignored by the compiler. So it's basically not running that line of code, okay? But what comments are, why they're important is we can comment our code to let us know if it come back months later, or let other developers know what our code is doing, okay? So it's important to document your code and create comments in your code so that you can go back to it later, or someone else can go back to it later and understand what the code does. Now, you want to have a fine line. You don't want to do too many comments because, you know, then it just, if you're over commenting for basic stuff, that's not really necessary. But I would say when in doubt, make a comment. We're going to err on the side of making more comments than less in this programming tutorial. Okay, so that's a one-line comment. If I want to do a multiple-line comment, I can do 3 quotes to open the multi-line comment and 3 quotes to close the multi-line comment. Now, if I do something like here, like print hello world, well, guess what's going to happen? If I run this, I get nothing showing up. And the reason for that being is, again, we've commented out this code. And so I can go down here and say, this is a multi-line comment. This will not be run. Okay, so if we go to run it again, we get no errors, exit code 0, no errors, but the code is not running. Okay, so that's comments. All right, let's talk a little bit about print behavior. And you might name this print end behavior. It's not like in math. If you're in pre-calculus, you have end behavior. This is something different with the print function in Python. It's an inbuilt function in Python. I'm going to just call it 003 and then print end behavior. Okay. And the typical behavior of the print function is to create a new line at the end of the print function. So this is one line, okay? And then we could print this is another line, okay? So if I run this, we'll see we get this is one line, this is another line. Let's say we didn't want a new line at the end. Well, we can change the behavior. We can do something like print and say, this is the first line. And then let's just do end equals. And so after this, we'll put a comma and then end equals, and then whatever the end behavior we want in quotes here. And I'll print something like, this is on the same line, okay? So now if I run this, you'll see that it ends up, this is the first line, this is on the same line. So the same line as the first line, even though the first line is the third line, whatever. Now I could do something else where, let's just say, get rid of that period here, and I put in here, let's put a comma and a space. Now when I run this, I get, this is the first line, comma, space, this is on the same line. So we can change this end behavior here if we just, after we print what we want to print, we're going to put a comma, then end equals, and then whatever we want it to be. Now, typically, the default is to have a new line character, and you can create a new line character in your text with this /n. Okay, so now you see this is the first line, and this is on the same line is moved down because this is the default. We don't have to write this though. We can just go with the default. Now with the new line character, you can do that a lot of places. You can do a /n here. If I run this, you'll see it breaks it apart. This is the first line is broken apart. We can do other stuff like tab over. So we can do /t here, and then we can tab it over. So this is the first line. This line is tabbed over. We can also do something like, let's say we were doing a string with single quotes. So I'll keep that. And we'll do print, and we'll say, let's do single quotes and say, this is and we want to do a quote. So we're going to do a / to escape a single quote. Let's do quote, a / to escape another single quote. We can do this with double quotes as well. And now when this prints out, you're going to say, this is and then you have the single quotes surrounding the quote. Now, if we didn't do that, Python would get confused. So I'm going to take out these escape characters here, and you'll see I'm getting some red. It's like, no, don't do that. And we run it, and we get an error. So the other thing, which is important to notice here, is we see the process finished with exit code 1. That means there was an error, okay? So we want 0. And the error was a syntax error. It's invalid syntax. So we do have to have that escape character to use the same type of quote within a quoted string, right? Now, actually, let me show you something. Now, if I change this and I didn't want the error, I could put this is a double quote and this is a double quote. Okay, and now if I run it, that works fine. I don't have to put the escape characters. But if I go back here, try and change these all to double quotes, you'll see I'm getting some red again. If I run it, we're going to get exit code 1. Okay, I'll do an escape to escape this. And let's run it. And now we get this is a quote in double quotes. So that's a little bit about escape characters and the end behavior of a print line. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about math in Python. Okay, so I'm going to, let's get rid of that. Okay, and we're going to create a new file. Let's call this file 004 _ math _ operations. Remember .py if you're not using an IDE. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about, so I'm going to make a comment here that we have different types of numbers in Python. Okay, so we have, let's do, what do we have? We have 13, that's a whole number, but we can also do something like pi, 3.14. We can also do something like 4 plus j. We'll talk about that in a moment, maybe in the next video or so. Okay, and we can do some math with them. So we can do something like print, let's do 13 plus 2, and that's going to yield 15. Let's just check. Okay, so we get 15, exit code 0, that's good. All right, let's go down here. We'll do print. Oops, what happened there? We'll do print and 20 minus 6. Okay, and we're going to get 14. Let's check. Okay, we get 14. Very good. Okay, let's do print. Now, this will be interesting. So we do 5 divided by 2. Now, some programming languages, this would just yield 2. It would be integer division, but we're going to get a float, which is 2.5, floating point number. And so we get 2.5, but if we want integer division, which sometimes we want, we can do 2 slashes like that. And this is going to give us 2. This is going to be integer division, which is also sometimes referred to as floor division. So let's run that, and we get 2. Okay, cool. All right. We can also do this other one. So we'll do print 5, and we'll do a %, 2. And this is going to give us 1. Okay, why is that? Well, this is the modulo operator, which gives the remainder. So the remainder by division. So 5 divided by 2, 2 goes into 5 twice and has a remainder of 1. Okay, just to confirm that, we'll run it. Okay, and you see we get 1. Okay, last one I want to talk about here is raising another number to a power. So if I do 2 and ** or ** 5, this is actually going to yield 32 because we are raising 2 to the 5th power. And what that means, if you're not sure, is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 5 2's multiplied together gives us 32. And we'll run it, and we see we get 32. Cool. All right, that's a little bit about math. Let's talk about variables. So create a new Python file, 005 underscore variables. Remember .py. Your text editor doesn't add it for you. And sometimes we want to use variables. So let's create some variables here. So create num1 and set that equal to 3, and then num2, set that equal to 4. Now with naming variables, if you have something like my name as a variable, so we do my, the typical style is an underscore. In Python, my name is Tim. This is called snake case. In other programming languages, you might have something like my name with the N and the second word onward capitalized at the beginning equals Tim. This is another way to create a variable, but not use that much in Python. This is called camel case. So you might use that in JavaScript or C or something like that, but you're not going to use that in Python. You're typically going to use the underscore. Okay, so we can do the same kind of math operations with these numbers, or we could, let's just print my name to the screen. And if I run that, it prints Tim. Okay, so it's just like running the string, my name. You could also print num1 plus num2. This should yield 7. So if I run it, we get 7. So same kind of stuff. Okay, let's do a few other things. We can print num1 minus num2. This should give us -1, so we can't get negative numbers in Python. And we see we get -1 there. We can print num1 times num2, and that'll give us 12. Okay, and so on and so forth. A couple other things I want to show you. Since num1 is less than num2, if we do num1, we do floor division or integer division divided by num2, note that this is going to give us 0. Even though it's really 3/4, 0.75, it gives us 0 in Python if we do it this way. Okay, if we did it num1 divided by num2 here, it's going to give us 0.75. But using floor division, it's going to bring it all the way down, okay, to the next lowest integer. The other thing, okay, let's do another thing I want to show you. Let's say we had 0 and we modulo num1, okay? This is going to yield 0, right? So the remainder of that division will be 0. So that's something to take note of when you're using the modulo operator, which you'll probably use a lot in your programming career, okay? All right, so that's a little bit about variables. Let's talk about equals versus double equals. Okay, so we're going to go here and create a new file, new Python file. Let's call it 006, and we'll just name it double underscore equals. Okay, and if I wanted to use a comparison between two numbers, I'm going to use a double equals. So let's say I want to compare 2 and 3. So I'm going to print 2 double equals 3. Now my text editor, the way I have it set up, the font I have is Code, and it's enabling ligature. So it looks like one long extended equal here, but it's really 2 equals right next to each other. Okay, this is going to give us a Boolean value that we're going to talk about that as a data type in a moment. But that's going to print the Boolean value. Now 2 is not equal to 3, so it's going to print the value false here, okay? If I messed up and did 1 equal, like 2 equals 3, this is an assignment operator. what exit code do you think I'm going to get when I run this? And if you said the exit code was 1, meaning there's an error, you are correct. Perhaps you meant double equals. See? It says expression cannot contain assignment. Now, where we use the single equals is when we're setting a variable. Like if I set my name equal to Tim, then I can do that. That's the assignment operator. That's fine. That's not going to cause an error. But I can't use it in a comparison. Okay. Let's talk about a few other comparison operators here. So I could also do print 4 is greater than or equal to. So greater than or equal to. Now, again, I'm enabling font ligatures, but if you didn't have that, you just have the greater sign and then next to it, the equal sign. And I could say 4. Now, is this going to be true or false? Well, 4 is equal to 4, so this will be true because it's greater than or equal to. So let's run this, and we get true, okay? But if I print something like 4 is greater than 4, well, this is going to be false because 4 is not greater than 4, 4 is equal to 4, okay? The other thing, let's print 4 is greater than 3. This should yield true. Let me do something here. I'm just going to do something like that just to show you another thing I'm going to do. And then I'll print 7 is less than 3. This is going to yield false. Okay. And actually, I'm not going to leave a new line at the end. I'm going to do something here. And we're going to select the whole file and do code cleanup, and we'll do run. And you'll see that a new line was created at the end of the file, and that 2 spaces were put in between the code and the comment. So that is AutoPep 8, which is Python guidelines. So what my IDE does, and some text editors can be set up to do this, is it formats the code for me so that it adds the extra line at the end and basically takes out the styling errors I had, like where I had the hashtag right up against the parentheses. If you're not using that, you may want to look over some of the styling guidelines. You do want to style your code, whatever language you're in, with the appropriate standards, as it makes it easier to read by other developers who understand the language and easier to work with. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's talk about data types. And I'm going to jump a little ahead and write a few things here at the top of the file, and we'll talk about that in a moment. That you might not understand right yet, but we'll get to those later. So we're going to have 007 underscore data underscore types. Okay. And I'm going to write a function up here. So this is something that we'll talk about in later lessons, but we're going to do DEF that defines a function, and then we'll name it, say, underscore hello, and do parentheses, and then colon here, and we're just going to, let's just print hello, okay? So that's going to be my function, and I'm also going to create a class. So let's do class, and remember this for later in the video because we will use it. We're going to do car, we're going to go down here, we're going to say def, and then double underscore init, and we'll pass in self. It does that for me. So self, and then f underscore name. Okay. And you don't have to understand this right now, but I'll show you what kind of type this is. I'll say self.name equals f name. And I'll go down here and create another function also within the class, return underscore name, pass in self, does that for me. And we're going to return self dot name. Okay. We'll go down here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go down and we're going to start looking at types. Okay. So just remember that this stuff is up top. we're going to start looking at types, and we'll look at that in a moment. So if I want to do print, I can do inside the print function, I can do this type function, and I'll put in a number 3. Okay, and this is actually going to give me this as an output. So class int, meaning it's an integer. It's the data type. So if I run this, I see class int. Okay. Now I can also do this print type, and then let's do decimal number. Let's do 3.14. And this is going to give me a class of float. It's a floating point number is a number with a decimal. So we run this, we get the class of float. Okay. We can also print, do a type, and do hello. This is going to output a class of str for string. So this is a string. Okay, run that. Just confirm it. See, class str. Okay, I'm going to do something a little interesting, and I referred to this in the previous video. So if I do type, and then I do, let's do 3 plus 4j, this is going to give me a class of complex. So if you've taken a course in pre-calculus or even sometimes in algebra 2, you talk about complex numbers, you can do those in Python. You see class complex. So that is a data type. And then let's do print. And these are a few up next that you haven't seen. So with inside the type parentheses, I'm going to do an open and close square brackets and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separated by comments. This is a list, which is like an array in other languages. So we're going to get class list here. Just to confirm, we get class list. Okay. All right. And let's see. Okay, so now we have that say hello function here. So we're going to do type, and we're going to do say hello. We'll pass that in, and I'm going to run it. And you see we have the class of NoneType. Okay, so this is a class of NoneType. Well, this is a function. Why is it saying class of NoneType? Well, if you notice here, we're just in this function, we are just printing hello. We are not returning anything. So we are returning nothing is a way to think of it. If I change this so that I'm returning a string, so if I go return and I do a string here, like hello, something like that. Now if I run it, we get class of string because it is returning a string. So class NoneType or class str or class int or whatever it's returning, okay, is the class there. Okay. Another thing we'll learn about, let's do print type. With inside the parentheses of the type, we'll do other parentheses, and then let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is going to give us a class called tuple. Okay. So if we run this, let's just confirm. Okay, we get class of tuple. All right. So that is another data type in Python. All right. So let's now print. We'll do type, and inside the type parentheses, we'll do left opening and closing curly braces. We're going to do a key of name, put a colon here, and let's do Tim, do a comma, a key of age, colon 46. And this is going to give us class dict, okay, for dictionary. Right? This is a dictionary class in Python. And if we run that, we can confirm we have class of dict. So that's important to know. Let's go back up to our class here. So take a look. We did create this class, which is, that's a little bit, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but we will learn about that. So we're going to do print type, and we're going to do car, and we're going to pass in Ferrari. Okay. And we want to see what this gives us. So let's run it. And we can see it gives us this class with this double underscore, dunder underscore here, main.car. Okay. All right. So class, that's double underscore main, always type name there, dot car. Okay. So we can create our own types here. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is another data type where we were doing the comparison operators in the previous lesson with the double equals. So we have print, and then we do type, and we do something like true. And let me just make a copy of this and do false here. We're going to get type Boolean for both of these, all right, which is bool. So we're going to get class of bool. All right, so this is class bool, and this is also class of bool. So Boolean is either true or false. Okay, so I think that's enough for now to talk about that. Let's talk about, in the next video, let's talk about type conversion, or the next lesson, since I'm all filming this at once. So we'll go new Python file. Let's do 008 underscore type underscore conversion. And yeah. Okay, create that. All right. So let's create a variable. Let's say it's a is equal to 3. And let's print out the type of a. And if we run this, we're going to get class of int. Remember, as we're doing this, you should be pausing the video and trying along with me. So class int. Okay. And I want to convert it to a string. Well, I can do, let's convert a to a string called b. I can do b equals str, and then in parentheses, pass in a as an argument. And I can do print type b, and this is going to give me class str for string. And we get class str for string. Okay, now let's create another variable. Let's do c, and in double quotes, we'll type in the number 3. And if we print the type of c, we're going to get class of string. So we get class of string again. Now if we take, let's take d and set it equal to variable c converted to an integer. So if we print the type of d, we're going to get class of int here. Okay. All right. So that's how you can do some string conversion. We'll talk about the input in the next file, and in the input, you may want to do some conversion. So this will come up in the next file. Create a new Python file. Let's call it 009 underscore input. Okay. And all right. So we can use input to get information from the user. So let's create a variable called your underscore name, set it equal. We're going to use this input, and then within parentheses, we're going to write the prompt that we want to give the user. So we can say something like, what is your name? Okay. Then we could output back to the user. We can do something like print your name is, and we'll do a plus here, which is called string concatenation. So we'll do the variable your name plus, and then we'll do like a period to end it. Now I'm going to show you something about using input when I run this, and we'll see if you pick it up. So it's what is your name? I'm going to put Tim. Your name is Tim. Now, did you notice here how it was right up next to the question mark? So when you are taking in user information, you probably want to leave a space like that. Okay. I suppose also you could do a new line character, but let's first do it this way. So what is your name? Tim. We got the nice space. Okay. Suppose we could do something like that. That's something a little less common. And then we'll do Tim, and it doesn't really work that well that way. So let's not do that. Okay. But, there's different ways you can do this. Okay. All right. Let's talk about input with type conversion. So I'm going to create, let's actually highlight this. And with my text editor, I can do a control and a / to comment this stuff out like so. And sometimes I get some weird highlighting here, especially when I'm filming. But anyways, so I've got these two things now commented out, so they will not run. But let's create another inputs, and we'll assign it to a variable called your_fav_num. Set that equal to the input. What is your favorite number? Okay. And we can print back your favorite number is, and we'll do your favorite number and then end it with period. Now, if we run this code, what is your favorite number? Let's do 7, naturally. It says your favorite number is 7. Everything ran just fine, right? Now let's put in some other code that might cause an issue, okay? Let's add 2 to your favorite number and print it out. So we'll do 2 plus your favorite number. Let's run it, okay? So it starts off, looks like everything's good. Put in 7. Ooh, process finished with exit code 1. You know that's not good, right? And then up here we see we get a type error. So it gives you the type of error you're getting, which in this case is a type error. And it's an unsupported operand type for concatenation, which is basically cannot concatenate an int and a string, okay? All right, so we have to do some type conversion here. Now we can do this when we take in your favorite number. So we could do something like int and surround the input here with parentheses. Now, if we do this, we're going to get an error, but not in the same spot. So what is your favorite number? 7. And we get another type error, but within this line where we're trying to put it in as a string. Another way to do type conversion, like if I just want to have it as a string here, I can do str, surround it with str to convert it that way. Now if I run it and type in 7, your favorite number is 7, and we can add 2. It doesn't persist, so I just converted it to a string for this part here, and then it was an int because we converted it to an int when we took it in. So 2 plus your favorite number is still 9. Now another way we can do this, take this out, take that out, and we'll just have it as an input. Okay, and then you see it's highlighting saying, we can do int here and surround it here. Okay, so that's another way we can do it. If we run it this way, what is your favorite number? We do 7. Your favorite number is 7, and then we get 9. Now, typically, if you are trying to take in a number, what I like to do is surround the input with the int. But there's a couple different ways to get the same thing done. Okay. All right. Let's now talk about functions. So we'll start with that. Okay. And we're going to go into more data types, so don't worry about that. We will get there. So let's create a new Python file. Let's call it 010 underscore functions. Okay. And so we can create a couple different functions. So let's do a first one where let's print, let's call it, well, we don't really want to name the function a keyword, like even if it's part of it. So I'm just going to say hello here. You can't name functions and variables keywords in Python. And now, if you're wondering about that, let me see if I can. One thing, if you want to import, we can import a keyword module, and then we can print keyword.kw list. Now, if we run this, we're going to get all these keywords in Python down here. So, we have like lambda, non-local, not, or, pass, some conditionals, elif, else. We have if, for, finally, except, class, break, continue, def for function. Okay, so you don't want to name your function or your variables any of those keywords. All right, let's get back to our function, our say hello function here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what looks like a multi-line comment, but it's not. It's a doc string. So do 3 quotes here. And then within that, we're going to describe what this function does. So we're going to say this function prints hello to the screen. Okay. And then below this, we're going to then do print and hello. Okay. So now if we want to go down and auto pep 8, the style is to leave 2 spaces below the end of your function. Now we can call the function, because if we just run it as is, see we get exit code 0, but nothing showed up. So a lot of times you're like, why is nothing running? And you're like, oh, I didn't call the function. Okay, so you want to call the function. So I'm going to type say hello with the parentheses to call the function. Now if I call the function, we see we get hello. Okay. It's not a great function, but it's an intro to function. So we're getting started. Okay. So we're going to do something else with the function that you'll see typically is to return something from the function. So we'll do def say underscore hello with return, not necessarily the best name. And here we're going to, let's make a doc string and say this function returns the string hello. Okay. Now we could set what this function is returning equal to a variable with the single equals, the assignment operator, or we could also just print it when we call it, print the call of the function. So we can do return and then in quotes, hello. Okay, and we can go down and call this within a print statement. So we can print and let's do say hello. I'm getting these auto suggestions. You may or may not get that depending on which text editor you use. And we do say hello with return. Now a note about these doc strings here. If I hover over this function here, and this is small because I have to put my display on small to get it to film correctly. But if you can see it here, it says this function returns the string hello. So if you hover over this, a lot of either advanced text editors or IDEs, VS Code will do this as well, but it will give you this doc string. So it will explain to you what's going on in the function. So see I'm hovering, I get that little pop-up. This is what the function does. If I run this, I get hello, okay? Now I don't get anything coming out from this function. This is a lowercase h. Nothing's coming out because I didn't call this one, okay? Now the other thing I can do, let's get rid of this, and let's set a variable equal to let's set it equal to greeting. And set that equal to say hello with return, okay? So now we're setting the greeting equal to what this returns, which is the string hello. And now we can do something like print greeting, okay? And we go ahead and we print it. We get hello, okay? All right, we can also do a say hello and pass in maybe a name as an argument, okay? We'll talk about arguments and parameters in a minute. So let's create a function. We'll do def that defines the function, say underscore hello with arg for argument. Now this, what I put inside the parentheses is actually called a parameter. So when I define the function, I'm putting the parameter f underscore name. Okay, I'm going to pass in an argument later, and we're going to return, use some string concatenation here. We're going to return hello plus f underscore name plus an exclamation point here. And then we'll go down and we'll print, and then we'll call the function within the print statement. So say hello with args, and let's pass in Tim, okay? Now if I run this, Now, when I'm passing it in, when I'm passing in the actual string Tim, that is the argument. Okay, f_name is the parameter. Okay, so it says hello Tim. Now let's try something different. Okay, let's pass in 7. Okay, now what's going to happen? We get a type error because we passed in an integer. But if I passed in 7 like this and ran it, well, we get hello 7. Okay, so whatever I want to pass in as a string will work. Okay, and if I do something like print, and I want to do the type of, say, hello, well, we're going to get the class of, see if you can answer this. Let's run it. NoneType, okay? Because we're printing, we're not returning. So this one is class NoneType. And then if we print, let's do type, and then say hello with return here. And this one is going to be the class of str, because we're returning a string, okay? So we're returning a string, okay? All right, that's the first talk about functions. We're going to do some functions with math, okay, which can be useful. Okay, so let's do a new Python file, and we'll do 0. We're going to keep this as 10 because this is still functions, but we'll do 010a underscore functions with math. Okay, so we can create a function. Let's create a function that will square a number that we pass into the function. So we're going to call this, let's call this square, and we're going to pass in some number, and we're just going to square it, meaning multiply it by itself. So we'll return num times num, okay? And one thing we want to do, let's put in a docstring. So we'll say this function squares the number passed into it. Okay, and now we can go down here and we can print, call the square function and pass in a number, not in quotes, right? This is going to throw an error. But if we pass it without the quotes, let's square 5. This should print 25 to the screen. Okay, let's run it, and we get 25 printed out to the screen. Cool. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's create another function. We'll call it exponent. So we'll do exponent, and we're going to pass in a base and a power, and we're going to say this function takes in a base and a power and raises the base to the power. Now notice how I'm going down another line, make it a little bit more readable. So what I can do now is return base raised to the power. Okay, and what we can do is we can print the square, and actually we want to print the exponent. Sorry, we already did the square. So exponent, and you'll see it's, if I hover over this, it's giving me basically what the function does, because I included that in the docstring, and it's actually showing me that I want to pass in a base and a power. Okay, so let's do 2, 3. So this should be 8 because 2 to the third power is 8. Okay, if we run this, we get 8. Okay, so I'm going to make a multi-line comment in here, and let's just talk about the exponent function. So in the exponent function, base and power, when we define the function, they are the parameters of the function, okay? And the arguments 2 and 3 are passed into the function, okay? A parameter equals a name in the function definition, and an argument equals what's passed in during the function call. Okay, just wanted to point that out. All right. Let's also talk about functions with default arguments. So I'm going to create another file here. New Python file. I'm going to call it 010b underscore, what am I calling this? Defaultargs. Okay, so we'll do Defaultargs. And so let's create our square function again. So we'll do square, and we'll take in a number, but we're going to set a default argument. So if I don't pass anything in the parentheses as an argument, I'm going to set the default to 3. Okay, and we're going to return num times num. Okay, so now what happens is if I call this function, so I do square, and I forget to pass in anything to the function, it's not going to throw an error. It's going to actually still print out something to the screen. So this would print 9 to the screen. Okay, so if I run it, we see we get 9. But I can actually pass in something, so I can print square, and if I want to square 4 instead, I could pass in 4, and this is going to output 16. Okay, so we get 16 the second time I called. The first time we took the default argument. The second time we took the argument that we passed in, which was not the default. We could do the same thing with the base and the power. So let's do our exponent function, and let's do base, set it equal to 2, power, set it equal to 3, and we'll return base asterisk asterisk power. Okay, and then I'm going to call this, so we can call the exponent function without any arguments, and then let's call the exponent function with some arguments. So let's do 4 to the third power. So this first one, that'll print out 8. The second one will print out 64. Okay, and just comment this other stuff out so we can see that. So I'm going to do Control/ once I highlight it, that'll comment it all out. Let's now run it, and we get 8 and 64 as our outputs. All right, so one more. We're going to talk about keyword arguments. Actually, 2 more before I end this part 1. So let's do another file here. Let's do new Python file. Let's do 010c underscore keyword underscore args. And let's start with this. So keyword args. Okay, so we'll create our exponent function here, and I'm going to give some default arguments here. Base equals 2, power equals 3, and we'll return base raised to the power. Okay, so that's the function we've been dealing with for a little bit. Now, if we call this, and we just call it, the first thing we pass in will be the base. So let's do 16, and then let's do a power of 2, and that's going to yield, I think, 256. So let's run it. Okay. All right, cool. Now, if we printed the exponent, let's say we did base of 2 and raised it to the 16 power. Let's see if this, yeah, we're going to get a huge number here. So this gives me, 65,536. Okay, but let's say I wanted the base to still be 16, but I put in the 2 first. So I can do that. I can do print exponent. I can say base equals 2, or sorry, base equals, let me do power equals 2. So I don't do it in the same order. Base equals 16. This will actually work. This will print out my 256. Okay, so if we run this, it prints out 256. Okay, so we don't have to keep the order. Notice the order was switched here when I did the keyword arguments. So that's keyword arguments and functions. Last one I want to talk about is args. Okay, in this video. So we're going to do a new Python file. 010d underscore star underscore args dot py. Okay, so let's create a function that will find the sum of all the numbers we pass into it. So we can do def to define the function find underscore sum, and we can just pass in a star, and then typically what you call it is args, although you don't have to, but typically that's what you do. We'll set a variable sum equal to 0 within the function, and now we're going to do a for loop. I'll explain more about this in later videos, but we're going to do a Pythonic way of doing it. So we could say something like for arg in args, because really args is a list coming through. So we can loop through the list. We can say sum plus equals. So what's happening is sum plus equals arg is every time we go through a number in this arguments that we pass in, it adds it to the sum. Okay. So we're summing up everything, and we can return the sum. Okay. All right, so what we can do is we can print and do find underscore sum, and we can pass in as many numbers as we want. So let's pass in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're summing up all the numbers from 1 to 10. We run this, we're going to get 55. Okay, but we could also run it. Let's just say we want to do find sum and just do 1, 2, 3. Right, we should get 6 on the second one, and we get 6. Okay. So it's just going to take in a variable number of arguments. So you can pass in however many arguments you want. Okay, I think that's good for the first part 1 of this Python programming series that I'm creating. As you can see, I'm losing my thought process a little bit, so it's time to end it right now. If you like this video, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. Also, stay tuned because I'm going to be putting up a part 2 very shortly. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.